Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that Vanessa and Nicole will clash in a storm that has been quietly gathering behind their smiles, that two friends who once read the same signals now find themselves misreading one another's hearts. It begins with a tilt so small most people would dismiss it. Vanessa's laughter lasts a fraction too long at the casino bar. Her hand lingers against Joey's wrist when she ought to be folding it. Nicole sees it, first as an amused spectator, then as a cautious friend. She is the kind of person who notices patterns, the way Vanessa's pupils dilate when she talks about risk, the way Vanessa seeks out light and noise when grief comes knocking. Nicole knows grief. She recognizes the outlines of someone trying to stitch themselves back together with new threads. And she worries. She worries because Joey is not merely a man who owns a casino, he is a man who understands the inconvenient calculus of power and desire, and ever since he entered their orbit his shadow has lengthened across nights and choices. Vanessa has always been impulsive, yes, but impulsive with a conscience. She has never been reckless in a way that abandons the people who love her. When Doug fell into that black well of despair, quieter and more dangerous than anyone anticipated, Vanessa felt the floor disappear beneath her. The first instinct was to build, to search desperately for anything that would stop the fall. Joey offered warmth, a mouth that understood how to listen without making demands, a slicked-back kindness that smelled faintly of money and cigarettes. He sat beside her while the world shuddered and told her stories of bright rooms and immediate pleasures. He handed her a quick patch, an night, then another, then a few more. The affair, if it must be called that, was a series of moments that didn't ask for names, a shelter from the thunder. In the hush of the casino's private rooms and the muffled corridors of Fairmont Crest, Vanessa allowed herself to be wanted in a way that eased the ache. 2 honest moments that she slept with Joey while Doug was unraveling. The revelation lands like a stone in a lake, ripples, widening, touching everything. Nicole, who has always been Vanessa's moral mirror, reacts with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. It isn't merely the act itself, it is the betrayal to history, to the narrative they had always told about themselves, that they are better than the seductions of cheap rescue. Nicole's argument is practical as much as moral. Joey, she says, is a hazard. He is polished, yes, but his kindness is engineered. He buys influence the way others buy groceries. Nicole's warning is not a jealous hiss, it is a historian's caution against repeating old tragedies in new clothes. She points out Joey's past transactions, the way his words bend like currency, the way he collects sympathies and debts with equal fervor. Vanessa hears the words but her emotions do not obey. She is tired, and Joey's touch is balm. She is terrified that Doug will fall further, and yet she feels alive in a way that frightens her. The cruelty of feeling alive when someone you love is dying from a different kind of collapse. Their clash is not a single roaring argument but a series of small detonations. Nicole speaks from the angle of prevention, Vanessa answers from the angle of survival. In the early hours, they reel through accusations that are partly honest and partly projections. Nicole accuses Vanessa of selling herself for the ghost of attention she's been missing. Vanessa accuses Nicole of being sanctimonious and refusing to understand the desperation that drove her into Joey's arms. Each remembers different versions of their friendship. Nicole remembers late nights at the university, the promises they whispered not to repeat the mistakes of their mothers. Vanessa remembers Nicole sitting with her at Doug's bedside when the monitors refused to blink. Their argument spirals because it is not just about Joey, it is about fear, mortality, trust, and the inventory of favors and forgiveness they both have been keeping for years. Meanwhile, Donnell's arc tightens like a rope. Donnell, with his steady hands and wide, eager smile, has long idolized Joey. To him, Joey is not simply a man who runs a casino, he is a symbol of possibility, a figure who survived and prospered in an indifferent world. Donnell's adoration is almost filial, part aspiration, part a hunger for approval. When Donnell receives a proposal, it is not the kind most people expect. It is not a marriage proposal at first but an offer to join Joey's staff, framed in the soft language of mentorship and inclusion. Joey, seeing Donnell's loyalty, extends the olive branch of employment, a room on the floor, a chance to be part of something lucrative and risk-strewn. The offer is flattering and dangerous in equal measure. Donnell's acceptance is swift and naive. He believes that by aligning with Joey he is securing all the things he has chased: respect, a career arc, perhaps even the chance to escape the sticky moral webs of their town. He is blind to the transactional undercurrent because Joey makes transactions look like generosity. Donnell's eagerness causes waves at home. Doug, if he were alive, would have been furious at the idea of his son working for a man who thrives on other people's vulnerabilities. The absence of Doug, the blank chair at the kitchen table, the unmade bed, the voice that used to admonish amplifies every misstep. Donnell's new position becomes an axis around which suspicion spins. Friends who once welcomed him now watch with narrowed eyes as he adopts the mannerisms of the casino floor, the quick counting of odds, the subtle deference to those with money, the way he starts to laugh at things he does not quite understand. For Vanessa, Donnell's hiring is a betrayal in slow motion. She imagines her son walking the same corridors where Joey's influence will be doled out like candy. She sees Doug's memory reflected in Donnell's bright, trusting face, and fear engulfs her. The guilt she feels about her own secret liaison with Joey curdles into a deeper dread, that she has allowed the enemy into her home, that she has normalized a dangerous proximity. The dynamic between Vanessa and Donnell becomes taut with unspoken reproach. Donnell, who idolized Joey, is bewildered that his mother could distrust the one man who has offered him a hand up. Vanessa, who idolized Doug, is tormented by the sense that Doug's absence has left her compassless, making her susceptible to the comfortable lies that men like Joey tell. While the personal economies of trust and betrayal churn, Shanice occupies a parallel alley of secrets. Shanice, who works at Fairmont Crest Hospital, has always been the one with an ear on every corridor. She is the unofficial archivist of whispered diagnoses, hallway flirtations, and the kind of gossip that coats the underside of any institution. Her access to two pieces of especially juicy information, one about Derek's health and the other about Vanessa's entanglement with Joey, becomes the kindling for a social fire. Derek's condition, which she learns in private while delivering a tray and bending to adjust a catheter, is more complicated than the surface admits. The disease's prognosis hovers between ambiguity and menace. It is the sort of thing that destabilizes families and forces hard choices. Shanice, who has watched Derek's laugh falter and his shoulders shrink against hospital blankets, recognizes the way a rumor will spread faster than a prescription. She also recognizes the power of selectively wielding knowledge. Information is currency. In a town where money and influence dictate the edges of life, gossip is a subtle but potent weapon. The second piece of news, the one about Vanessa and Joey, arrives as a delicious confirmation. A visiting nurse, loose-lipped and fond of dramatic irony, mentions seeing Vanessa slip into the casino's VIP wing with Joey on nights when she ought to have been at the funeral home processing Doug's affairs. Shanice pieces together the timeline with clinical joy. She loves the sensation of holding a secret that will make people act differently toward one another. In her hands, the two items form a narrative that will be irresistible to the town's circulatory system of opinions. Derek's fragile health makes everyone tender and defensive. Vanessa's secret makes her culpable in the eyes of those who value loyalty above all. Shanice imagines the fallout: whispered corridors, stares at church, calls made in the small hours. To her, the gossip is not spiteful, it is the town's bloodletting, a way to keep everyone honest or, at least, entertained. The gossip, once released, moves like a fever. The nursing station becomes a theater where headlines are born. People lean in, sockets of boredom replaced by interest. The first wave of murmurs reaches Nicole, who is not surprised but feels vindicated. Her warnings to Vanessa, which had been shouted into a wind of denial, now gain allies. Yet that validation does not heal. Instead, it deepens the rift. Vanessa pulls inward, ashamed and defensive. Nicole relaxes into a grim certainty that she was right all along. Their friendship, previously elastic enough to stretch around small betrayals, begins to fray. Each new whisper that lands at Nicole's feet sharpens her resolve to protect Donnell from further harm, and to push Vanessa away from Joey's gravitational pull. Vanessa, meanwhile, feels besieged by public scrutiny and private guilt. Every look from a neighbor becomes an accusation, every door held a trap. The social pressure amplifies the moral pressure, and decisions that were once personal now feel performative. In the background of all this, the casino breathes as its own organism. Joey's domain is lacquered with lights that never quite dim, with carpets that swallow footsteps, and with chairs that offer false intimacy. To the casual observer, the casino is glamour; to those who work there, it is an ecosystem that rewards charm and punishes weakness. Joey knows how to set people against one another while appearing to mediate. He smiles with an economy intended to conceal cost. His interest in Vanessa is layered, an eye for the romantic, a tactical curiosity about her influence in the neighborhood, and a test of how much leverage he can exert before people notice. He is not cruel in a cartoonish sense, rather, his moral imagination is engineered for survival. He values loyalty but only when it can be converted into profit. Thus, his offer to Donnell is both benevolent and strategic. He gains a reliable employee and plants a token of himself inside Vanessa's home life. The town watches. Of course, small communities are predators of scandal. People who once greeted Vanessa with warmth begin to hesitate. The funeral home, reeking of flowers and old grief, becomes a pulpit where thinly veiled judgments are pronounced in the guise of condolences. Vanessa goes to work and tries to move through the motions: arrange flowers, greet mourners, place a gentle hand on a shaking shoulder. But every task is layered now with the knowledge that her private choices have public consequences. She feels the world narrowing to the size of a single headline. It is a claustrophobic kind of living, where every mirror is a judge and every doorway a potential exit to ruin. Doug's memory hangs in all of this like an accusation or a plea, depending on who recollects him. He was not perfect, his flaws were numerous and often glaring, but his presence was a stabilizing force. Without him, habits erode, patience frays, and the moral calculus of the household changes. Vanessa tries to reconcile the woman who loved Doug and kept faith with a man who is now reduced to a tangle of hospital cords and absent silences, with the woman who seeks solace in Joey. The internal conflict is vicious because it demands choices that feel incommensurate, honoring a dead partner through stoic loyalty versus staying alive by any means necessary. Vanessa's mind becomes a negotiation table where these impulses bargain. She tells herself that survival is not betrayal, that grief reshapes the rules. Yet the appeal of self-justification only delays the hammer of consequence. As people take sides, the town begins to split into factions of empathy and condemnation. Some argue that Vanessa did what any person might do to stave off unbearable sorrow, others insist that the timing of her liaison reveals character. Nicole's camp focuses on patterns of manipulation, while certain others, especially those who have been inside the casino's gilded rooms, find it convenient to accept Joey's plausible deniability. Donnell, caught in the middle, experiences a surge of loyalty to the man who gave him a job, and shame at the whispers that now trail behind him. He tries to explain to friends that Joey is not what the rumors say, that he is a giver of chances. His words sound rehearsed, and sometimes even to his own ears, naive. The more he defends the casino's owner, the more he distances himself from his childhood's moral lessons. And then there is the matter of Derek. Shanice's disclosure of his health status produces a subsidiary crisis. Derek, who is often the town's quietly resilient figure, is now a subject of speculation. His course of treatment, the way he responds to medication, the timbre of his speech, all of this becomes public property in a way that disturbs the idea of privacy. In family rooms, people argue about whether Derek should fight it out or withdraw. In the hospital, nurses rush with an anxiety that is equal parts professional and personal. The connection between Derek's fragility and Vanessa's transgression becomes a narrative thread many are eager to tug. If Derek's illness demands the highest level of loyalty from those around him, then Vanessa's dalliance feels like a more aligned version. If, instead, Derek's health is degenerative and destabilizing, the town asks whether harsh judgment on Vanessa is misplaced compassion. This tangle produces a contagion of doubt that infects even the most mundane moments. Conversations at church, once about scripture and charity, are now about truths and whose trust was violated. People find themselves replaying events, assigning motives, and building imaginary legalities around an affair that has no need of law to render it ruinous. Vanessa begins to retreat further into herself. She gets better at smiling politely while another part of her calcifies. Nicole tries to be present but discovers that presence is not enough to bridge the gulf that secrets have dug. Donnell oscillates between pride in his new role and the creeping awareness that his choices might cost him the simplest pleasures of childhood. Shanice, having started the whisper, watches the town rearrange itself with a kind of perverse satisfaction, unable to unhear the echo she set loose. Within this web of relationships, the question of who profits emotionally from another's pain becomes central. Joey's hands are in many pockets. Some argue that he engineered the whole sequence of events to expand his dominion. Others insist he is an actor of fortune, benefiting only because he knows how to stand in the right place at the right time. Vanessa's motives remain opaque even to herself: survival, or escape, perhaps all three, perhaps none in particular. The ambiguity is what makes the situation so combustible. People want clean villains and heroes, but life insists on messy shades. The town, eager to place blame, begins to look for a verdict, even though none of the participants is ready to grant one. At the center of the multiplying tensions, a new question arises: will Vanessa choose to sever the comfort that Joey offers and recommit to the memory of Doug and the moral architecture of her community, or will she allow herself to form new loyalties that might protect her in the short term but cost her in the long run? The answer is not yet clear, and the story lurches forward on the incomplete engines of desire, guilt, and rumor. As relationships realign and secrets leak into daylight, everyone involved braces for the consequences, not yet imagining the full extent of the storm about to break, but feeling its first cold gusts through the cracks of their lives. The town waits, and in the pause, alliances are tested, hearts are measured, and the quiet calculus of who will be forgiven and who will be ostracized begins to play out in the everyday rituals of a community on edge. Joey's charm, once magnetic and intoxicating, begins to curdle. The cracks start small: a sharp tone with a dealer, a delayed payout to a high roller, a rumor that he's been seen meeting quietly with men who aren't from Fairmont Crest. His confidence remains intact on the surface, but the casino's heartbeat is irregular. Money is moving through unfamiliar channels, and the staff feel the tremors. Donnell, still new enough to want to please, starts noticing things he cannot unsee: the coded language in Joey's late-night phone calls, the way ledgers disappear and reappear with different figures. What once seemed like mentorship now feels like apprenticeship to something darker. Joey still treats him with the same fatherly warmth, a hand on the shoulder, the promise of a promotion if he keeps quiet about certain irregularities. But Donnell's conscience, shaped by Doug's ghost and Nicole's subtle warnings, begins to stir. He wonders whether loyalty is a virtue or a leash. The thought of his father, his laugh, his rare but powerful nods of approval flickers through his mind each time Joey asks him to look the other way. He realizes, with mounting dread, that he's been positioned as both shield and scapegoat. If the house of cards collapses, it will be the junior employee whose name appears first on the paperwork. Meanwhile, Vanessa has started to feel the weight of her choices pressing on her like humidity. Nights with Joey, once thrilling and illicit, now carry a bitter aftertaste. She has learned how easily he compartmentalizes affection. His words are soft, but his eyes are calculating. Every time she asks about Donnell's safety at the casino, Joey brushes her off with assurances that feel rehearsed. She's begun to sense the pattern. Every woman who falls for him is fed the same script, the same mixture of concern and control. Nicole, still reeling from their falling out, watches from a cautious distance. The moral clarity that once fueled her arguments now feels murky. She's angry at Vanessa but also frightened for her. She tries to intervene indirectly, reaching out to Donnell under the guise of checking in, asking subtle questions about Joey's operations, about whether he's seen anything strange. Donnell deflects at first, then lets slip fragments of truth: a missing shipment, a coded ledger entry, a guest list that reads more like a money laundering pipeline. Nicole knows then that her fears were not paranoia. Joey is not merely manipulative. He is dangerous. The tension between Vanessa and Joey escalates after one particularly tense evening when she confronts him about rumors circulating at the casino. She's heard whispers from a dealer who owes her a favor that Joey's empire is built on debt and favors traded like weapons, that he's being watched by people far more ruthless than he pretends to be. Joey's response is cold precision. He doesn't yell. He simply tells her that love and loyalty are tests, and that she's failing hers. That night, Vanessa leaves his penthouse feeling both terrified and free, clutching her purse like a lifeline as she walks through the flashing corridors toward the exit. At home, her reflection has changed. The woman in the mirror is not the one who first fell into Joey's gravity. Her eyes are sharper now, less forgiving. She resolves to protect Donald at all costs, even if it means exposing herself. But protection comes with risk. Joey has a long memory and a short temper when he senses betrayal. Shanice, ever the opportunist, continues to weave herself through the gossip currents. Her discovery of Derek's worsening condition has made her a temporary oracle among the hospital staff. People bring her coffee, flattery, attention. She soaks it in. But when she learns that Derek's decline may be connected to something that happened at the casino, a night of stress, a confrontation, perhaps even a fight, the pieces start clicking in her mind. Shanice realizes the stories are converging, that the boundaries between health, money, and rumor are dissolving. She starts to suspect that Joey's influence extends beyond gambling, into medical records and debts, into who gets care and who doesn't. The temptation to leak more information grows. Nicole finds Shanice one morning in the hospital cafeteria, her tone edged with urgency. She doesn't ask. She demands to know what Shanice really knows about Joey. Shanice hesitates, then smirks. "You want dirt, honey." "Dirt costs." Nicole offers what she has: not money, but access to the community board, where stories travel fast and gain legitimacy. It's a deal sealed with coffee and mutual distrust. Shanice begins feeding Nicole details: Derek's illness, the whispers about Joey's business fronts, even Vanessa's secret visits. Nicole, weaponizing what she hears, begins crafting a strategy. She doesn't want revenge, she wants dismantling. She wants to pull Joey's empire apart without dragging Vanessa and Donald into ruin. Donald, caught in the storm's eye, starts to understand the magnitude of what's happening around him. Late one night, he stumbles upon Joey arguing with two strangers in the service corridor. The words are low but urgent. Donald catches enough to understand debts, missing shipments, and a name he doesn't recognize: Doug. The shock freezes him. Why is Joey talking about his father? Later, when Donald confronts him, Joey's reaction is a masterclass in manipulation. He spins a story about how Doug once owed him a favor, how Doug's death left behind unfinished business that he is simply trying to settle. The implication is poisonous. Donald leaves the room shaking, unsure of what's real anymore. Vanessa begins to suspect that Joey's reach extends to her late husband's memory. She digs through Doug's old papers, cross-referencing dates, receipts, and signatures. What she finds turns her stomach: records of old debts tied to the casino, coded in ways only Joey could devise. The realization crashes over her. Joey didn't just happen into her life after Doug's death. He'd been circling it long before. Her grief, her vulnerability, her need for connection, all of it was calculated. Nicole is the first person she calls. The conversation is raw, unfiltered. There are no apologies, no pleasantries, just strategy. They agree that Joey must be exposed. But exposure means risk. They need proof, not just suspicion. Donald becomes their reluctant inside source, providing access to files, encrypted ledgers, and surveillance records. Each document adds a new layer of horror. Joey has been laundering money through fake patient bills at Fairmont Crest. Shanice, unknowingly, has been helping keep the system intact by spreading gossip that distracts from the truth. The realization hits Shanice like a blow when Nicole confronts her with the evidence. For once, the talkative nurse is speechless. She had thought herself a harmless gossip, not a cog in a machine built on exploitation. The guilt eats at her, and in a rare moment of conscience, She agrees to help Vanessa and Nicole. Her access to the hospital's data becomes their final key. They piece together how Joey's money moved from casino to hospital, from patient debts to offshore accounts. It's a web vast enough to trap everyone connected to him. As the plan to expose Joey takes shape, danger closes in. Donnell starts noticing cars parked too long near their home, unfamiliar faces at the casino. Joey, sensing betrayal, grows unpredictable. His charm now burns like a fever. He tells Vanessa he still loves her, that they can rebuild somewhere else, that he'll take care of anyone standing in their way. It's the kind of promise that sounds like a threat. Vanessa pretends to believe him, playing along until she can ensure Donnell's safety. Nicole arranges a meeting with an investigative journalist from the city. They meet in the dim back booth of a diner off the highway. She slides over the USB drive with all the files Donnell and Shanice help gather. The journalist listens, expression unreadable, then says quietly, "If this is real, it's not just your town that's in danger." Joey discovers the betrayal before the story breaks. Someone from the casino tips him off, maybe out of loyalty, maybe out of fear. When Vanessa arrives home one evening, the lights are off, the air thick with silence. Joey is waiting, seated at the kitchen table like he owns it. His smile is gentle, but the tension is coiled. "You could have trusted me," he says. "You didn't have to turn this into a war." Vanessa stands still, her hand near her phone. She tells him she's not afraid anymore, that the truth is already out. It's half a bluff, half a prayer. Donnell bursts in moments later, having received a warning text from Nicole. He sees Joey's face shift from affection to calculation. Words are exchanged too fast to follow. Something about debts, about fathers, about cycles that never end. Then Joey stands, his expression almost weary. "You think you can destroy me?" he says softly. "You're already mine." But outside, headlights bloom. Nicole, Shanice, and the journalist arrive with police escort. The confrontation unravels in slow motion. Joey's attempt to flee, Vanessa's trembling composure, Donnell's disbelief. The house, once filled with silence, erupts into chaos. Officers flood the doorway. Joey is cornered, his empire collapsing in real time as his phone lights up with alerts from the casino accounts frozen, arrests underway, headlines spreading. The aftermath is quieter but heavier. Fairmont Crest becomes a town defined by whispers of its own redemption. Shanice is suspended from her hospital job but finds herself oddly relieved. Her gossip, once currency, now feels like confession. Nicole returns to the rhythms of ordinary life, though her trust in people remains fractured. Donnell, scarred by what he saw, vows never to mistake charisma for leadership again. And Vanessa, she becomes both symbol and mystery. Some say she left town, that she needed distance from the ghosts of Doug and Joey alike. Others claim she stayed, buying back the old funeral home and turning it into a counseling center for people whose lives have been upended by loss and deceit. What's certain is that she is no longer the same woman who once clung to Joey's warmth to survive. She has learned that grief can make accomplices of anyone, that redemption begins where illusion ends. In the final quiet moments of their story, the casino stands abandoned, its lights dark, the air filled with dust and memory. Shanice passes by sometimes, humming to herself, thinking about all the stories that started there and ended elsewhere. Nicole visits Doug's grave once a month, placing a single white flower and whispering that the truth, finally, has found its way home. Donnell drives by the coastline at night, engine humming, windows down, feeling the kind of peace that comes only after the storm has passed.